You've been told your whole life to save money, put it aside, build a cushion. That is correct. It is also incomplete. And the part that is missing is costing you more than any expense on your bank statement. Here is a number. The national average savings account in the United States pays 0.39% AP. That is the FDIC number as of March 2026. Here is another number. The Consumer Price Index rose 3.3% over the 12 months ending March 2026. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Your savings account pays 0.39. Inflation runs at 3.3. The difference is negative 2.91% per year. That is not a risk. That is a guarantee. A guaranteed loss of purchasing power. Compounding quietly, every single year you leave money sitting there and call it a plan. Before I go any further, I am not a financial advisor. Nothing in this video is personal advice. This is math. I am showing you how two tools work, what they cost, and what they do not do. Your situation is yours. Talk to a professional before you make moves. Now, the mainstream position on savings goes like this. Cash is safe. FDIC insured up to $250,000 per depositor per institution. No market risk, no volatility. You put in $10,000, you get back $10,000 plus a small amount of interest. For emergencies, for short-term goals, for sleeping at night, savings accounts are the right tool. That position is not wrong. I want to be clear about that. Savings accounts have a job. They do that job. And this is where most people stop reading the statement. The part that does not get said often enough is what that safety actually costs. $10,000 in a savings account earning 0.39%. After 1 year, you have $10,039. Inflation at 3.3% means the purchasing power of that $10,039 is equivalent to roughly $9,720 in last year's terms. You gained $39 in interest. You lost approximately $330 in purchasing power. Net result, negative $291 in real terms on money you were told was safe. Nobody sends you a notification for that. No app pings you at midnight to say your cash just lost purchasing power again. It just happens quietly monthly, like a meter running in a parking garage where you left your money because someone told you it was the safest spot in the building. The meter does not stop. You just do not see the receipt. Now, the other side, the case for investing, historically, a broad index of US stocks has returned roughly 10% per year on average over the long term. After inflation, that number drops to approximately 7%. Those are nominal and real figures from S&P 500 data going back to 1957. According to Standard & Poor's and adjusted using Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI data, the trade-off volatility. In any given year, the market can drop 20, 30, 40%. In 2008, broad indexes fell approximately 37% in a single calendar year. In 2022, they fell around 18%. That is not theoretical risk. That is the price of admission. So here is where the debate usually lands. Saving is safe but shrinking. Investing grows but swings. One side says, stop losing money to inflation. The other side says, stop gambling with money you cannot afford to lose. Both sides are right. Both sides are incomplete. The first assumption that breaks down is this, that saving and investing are two versions of the same activity. They are not. They serve fundamentally different functions. A savings account is a holding tank. It keeps money accessible, liquid, and protected from market loss. Its job is preservation of nominal value and immediate access. An investment account is a growth engine. Its job is to outpace inflation and compound over time, horizons measured in decades. Using a savings account for long-term wealth building is like using a fire extinguisher to heat your house. It is the wrong tool, not a broken tool, the wrong one. The second assumption that breaks down that you must choose one. 42% of American families do not own stocks directly or indirectly. That is the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances based on 2022 data, the most recent wave available. At the same time, 37% of Americans have less than $500 in cash savings. That comes from a 2026 survey reported by Yahoo Finance. Those two groups overlap more than people think. A significant portion of Americans are doing neither well. And every institution with a financial product to sell has an incentive to frame this as either or. The bank wants your deposits, the brokerage wants your trades. Neither one makes money when you sit quietly and build a two-layer system on your own terms. Now, the numbers, same person for both scenarios, so nothing hides. Meet Finley, 30 years old, living in Columbus, Ohio, working in supply chain logistics. Salary, $62,000 after taxes, health insurance, and rent on a one-bedroom that costs $1,180 a month. Finley has about $740 of discretionary income, no car payment. Bought a used Civic in cash 3 years ago. Credit score 721. Finley has $8,400 in a regular savings account, earning 0.39% AP, and puts in $300 a month. That is the entire financial plan. No retirement account through work because the company does not offer a match, and Finley never set one up independently. No brokerage account, no Roth IRA, just a savings account. Finley is not irresponsible. Finley has not missed a rent payment in 4 years. Finley does not carry credit card debt. Finley is doing what most people think is the right thing. Here's what the math gives back. $300 a month into a savings account at 0.39% for 30 years. Total contributed $108,000. Account balance at the end, approximately $114,500. That is roughly $6,500 in interest over 3 decades. Inflation adjusted purchasing power of that $114,500, assuming an average of 3% annual inflation over the period, roughly $47,200 in today's terms. Finley put in $108,000 over 30 years and ended up with the purchasing power of $47,200. More than half the value evaporated not through fees, not through bad decisions, through the passage of time and a 3% annual erosion that nobody ever circled in red on a statement. Now, the second scenario, same Finley, same $300 a month, but split differently. $150 a month stays in the savings account as an emergency fund until it reaches 6 months of essential expenses, roughly $12,000. The other $150 a month goes into a low-cost, diversified index fund in a Roth IRA. Once the emergency fund hits $12,000, the full $300 goes to the Roth. That shift happens around month 24 based on the starting balance. So for simplicity, 2 years at $150 a month invested, then 28 years at $300 a month invested. At a 7% average annual return after inflation, here is what the math produces. First 2 years, $150 a month at 7%. Contributions, $3,600. Balance at end of year 2, approximately $3,850. Next 28 years, $300 a month at 7%, starting from $3,850. Contributions over 28 years, $100,800. Final balance, approximately $340,000. In today's purchasing power, because we already used the inflation-adjusted return, $108,000 contributed across both scenarios. One path ends at $47,200 in real value. The other ends at approximately $340,000. The difference, $293,000. Same person, same income, same discipline, different tool. By any reasonable definition, Finley did what was asked, saved consistently, avoided debt, lived within means. The system gave back a fraction of what the math could have delivered, because nobody explained the difference between the parking garage and the engine. But the part that should stop you cold, that $293,000 gap, does not require Finley to earn more money. It does not require a promotion, a side hustle, a windfall, or a single additional dollar of income. It requires moving dollars from one account type to another. That is it. The gap is not about discipline. Both versions of Finley have identical discipline. The gap is about the container the money sits in. The strongest counterargument deserves a fair hearing. The market is not guaranteed. 7% is a historical average, not a promise. There have been decades. The 2000s, for instance, where a broad index returned nearly zero over a 10-year stretch after inflation. A person who retired in March 2009 and needed to sell holdings had a very different experience than a person who retired in March 2019. Sequence of returns risk is real, volatility is real, loss is real. That is a legitimate point, and it is the precise reason savings and investing are not interchangeable. The savings account exists to cover the period when you cannot afford to be wrong. The 3 to 6 months when you lose a job, when the car breaks, when the medical bill arrives. That money must not be in the market because you might need it on a Tuesday when the index is down 14% from its peak. The investment account exists for the money you will not touch for 10, 20, 30 years. Over those time horizons, the historical evidence, not certainty, but evidence, supports the proposition that diversified equity exposure outpaces inflation by a meaningful margin. The risk is real. The cost of avoiding that risk entirely is also real. And it is $293,000 in Finley's case. Nobody frames it as a cost, but it is. That quiet recalculation you do at the end of the year. When you check the balance and it is higher than last year, but everything somehow feels tighter. That is the math working against you in a frequency too low to hear. So the honest answer to the debate, both sides are right within their domain. Cash is the right tool for liquidity, emergencies, and short-term preservation. Investing is the right tool for long-term growth beyond inflation. The error is not picking the wrong tool. The error is using one tool for both jobs. The conditions where savings alone makes sense. Your time horizon is under 3 years. You have no emergency fund. You carry high interest debt. In those cases, cash is the priority, full stop. The conditions where investing may matter, your emergency fund is built. Your high interest debt is gone and your time horizon is 5 years or longer. In that case, leaving additional money in a 0.39% account is not caution. It is a cost measured in hundreds of thousands of dollars over a working lifetime. April is Financial Literacy Month. That framing gets attached to a lot of content this time of year. But the arithmetic works the same in October. The 0.39% does not improve because the calendar changes. The 3.3% CPI does not pause for summer. One tool for safety, one tool for growth. The difference between two containers holding the same person's money. That is not an opinion. That is a subtraction problem. So here is the question I will leave you with. The number in your savings account. Do you know what that number will buy in 10 years if nothing changes?